Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you're all having a great day. I'm Robert Mays, Head of the Portfolio Management Office at Cambridgeshire Community Services and Joint Regional Lead for the East of England. I'd like to extend my thanks for joining this session of the Compass 03 event today. Just before I hand you over to the team from NHS Digital, I will just let you know the format for this session. You'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a panel containing a chat function and a Q&A. The chat is perhaps obvious, and the Q&A is for you to put questions to Julie, Arlene and James as you think of them, if you would like to, of course. A festival game code was given on the screen at the beginning of this session for arriving on time. We will also give a game code at the end of the session. Towards the end of this presentation on the Change Management Toolkit, there will be a Q&A session. Please feel free to vote on each other's questions, with those questions with the most votes appearing at the top. Now to introduce our speakers for this session. Julie Atkins is a Principal Relationship Manager within the Product Implementation and Relationship Management team at NHS Digital. Julie is responsible for NHS Digital's external relationship with 5 integrated care systems across both the Midlands and East regions, as well as engaging the customers' NHS Digital's product and services to ensure they are meeting the customers' needs and delivering the benefit of in their organisations. Julie provides support both internally and externally on change management, an area she's particularly passionate about. A qualified change management practitioner, she has more than 30 years' experience of leading change management and learning and development projects and initiatives in many sectors and organisations, and she's been instrumental in the creation and development of this change management toolkit. Arlene Morgan is an implementation and business change manager in NHS Digital. She's based in the Midlands East of England region. Arlene joined the NHS 15 years ago as a project manager, implementing local and national IT systems. Both over the years, she has enhanced her skill base and expertise, and now is a change management practitioner where she shares best practice of change initiatives. She is also a qualified business relationship management professional. Arlene has experience of leading numerous digital change initiatives, including the summary care record, electronic prescription service, and currently interoperable medicine standards. James Kane is Product Implementation Relationship Manager at NHS Digital. His area of focus is managing the business change aspects of digital transformation through the delivery of NHS Digital solutions within the NHS. As a qualified change management practitioner, he has extensive experience in leading numerous digital change initiatives, including NHS App, Attend Anywhere video consultation product, EDDI, the Emergency Department Digital Integration product, and NHS Digital's Cybersecurity Protective Monitoring Service. So without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Julie.
Thanks, Robert. That's lovely. Thank you. Hello, everyone. First of all, thanks for having us here. It's lovely to be able to present you our Change Management Toolkit. So, as Robert said, I'm Julie Atkins, Principal Relationship Manager with PERM, more of which later. And as he said, I've had 30 years experience in change and learning and development, which is really scary when I even think about it, let alone say it. I'm supported by my colleagues Arlene and James, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how the session is going to run in a second. But we all work in PERM. Now, you probably have heard of NHS Digital, if for no other reason than the news recently about our merger along with NHSX into NHS England. But you probably won't have heard of PERM. One of the reasons for that is that we've only acquired that new name about 6 weeks ago ourselves. And PERM stands for Product Implementation and Relationship Management. And we're part of the Product Development Directorate at NHS Digital. And we're the team that's responsible for making sure that NHS Digital's products and services are used in the real world. We've got a small team, there are only 78 of us, and our role really is to develop and sustain trusted relationships with all 42 integrated care systems. And there are more than 320 digital health and care leaders that we engage with regularly within those 42 systems. Our role is to help our customers to optimise the use of NHS Digital products and services. And during financial year 2021, we've already supported more than 30 separate products, a range of different stages from discovery to live service. So in this presentation, we're going to introduce you to one of the tools we use to help us with this work, our Change Management Toolkit. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of the background of that toolkit. Then Arlene's going to talk about how we use it now. and James will give a demonstration of the toolkit itself. We'll then come back to where we might take that in the future, and also questions. So please add questions to the question and answer section as we're going through. Next slide, please, James. So the background to why the PERM Change Management Toolkit. Next slide, please, James. So our Change Management Toolkit started with an organisational change within NHS Digital. Just about to go through another one. Be interesting to see what we've learned from what we did before. So not all projects consider change, as I'm sure we're all aware, at least not until they're having problems with engagement, but this one did. So we stood up a team of 8 of our PERM team who've all been through the APMG Change Management Practitioner qualification to support the directorates. And to do that, we developed and used tools and techniques based on the syllabus and our wider experience. We realised as a result of that we could probably do with somewhere to store those things and share them with other people in the organisation. So we created the first version of the toolkit initially so that other PERM change managers could gain easy access. Next slide, please, James. Once we started, we realised it was difficult to constrain the number of tools and techniques that we used. So we've now got over 70 of them, many with real life examples of how they could be used. And once we had it and we were using it within our function, we realised that NHS Digital project teams, which has been one of the themes coming out from today as well, would also benefit from having access to some of this. So we started sharing it within the organisation as a way of helping project and programmes to understand change management as a concept, and even better, to consider it change management alongside their product development deliverables even. So it's gone really well in terms of how they accepted this, and we're now hoping to share more widely outside of NHS Digital. Next slide, please, James. So the change framework is based on, because we're a tech organisation, we clearly think about tech as being part of one of our solutions, but the change framework is the 2 other elements of true transformation, which are people and process. So it's much of difficulty in larger projects relates to dealing with processes and people, such as engagement and training, but only when all those things are considered together can true transformation occur. I'll hand to Arlene now.
Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, I'm Arlene Morgan. I'm one of the Implementation and Business Change Managers from NHS Digital. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we are using the toolkit. So the hope was that the toolkit could be a resource for anyone involved in managing change, whether it was a programme, a project or a business change initiative. So people such as your project managers, your change managers, transformation managers, or similar staff members. It's also been designed as a resource for the NHS Digital PERM team, as Julie mentioned, members to refer to when guiding teams and individuals through change as part of their day-to-day work. And it's also useful and helpful for NHS Digital product development colleagues undergoing their own change programmes to increase their understanding of the importance of the change phases, the tasks and the considerations. For example, getting involved at the beginning of a change initiative rather than at the deployment stage, which we know does occur very often. Next slide, please, James. Thank you. So its usage to date, here are some of the NHS Digital programmes that have used the tools from the toolkit, and it illustrates the versatility of the toolkit. So for example, one of the programmes I'm working on at the moment, the Interoperable Medicines programme, it's a large, complex technical programme, and it involves getting involved with primary as well as secondary care organisations. And so we've utilised some of the tools from the toolkit for that. The Cybersecurity Operations Centre have utilised the theory of business process mapping techniques. And then the COVID vaccinations programs, it's a large national program. They've used the stakeholder analysis and change networks within that program. So the size and the complexity of the program can be catered for by this toolkit. Next slide, please, James. Thank you. So here we have a list of the organisations that we have actively engaged with and shared the toolkit with to get their feedback. It's a diverse group of organisations. It includes acute hospitals, community, mental health, and at an ICS level, we have the Cambridge Community Services and Lincolnshire Learning Network, and they have an footprint into 4 different ICSs, so we know that that is a huge area. So all of this has culminated into us speaking to Health Education England, which has brought us to this event today where we're presenting to you. Next slide, please, James. In terms of feedback, we have received lots of verbal feedback, but I wanted to show you the written feedback we've had so far. And as you can see on the screen, we've had some quotes from a couple of trusts we've engaged with. So Hull University and South Warwickshire Foundation Trusts have given us a few quotes that we're sharing with you now. I'm going to hand over to James, who is going to provide you with a demonstration of what the toolkit looks like. Thank you.
Thanks, Arlene. So I'm James Kane. I'm also an implementation and business change manager at NHS Digital. I'm shortly going to show you the actual toolkit itself. It's a demo of that, but I'm just going to cover off a couple of key points around the framework of the toolkit. So I think you'll be able to see on this screen here that we've built the change management toolkit on this framework you see here, which is like a change management phased approach. You can see the different phases here, from defining the change early on, and then you move through the phases, prepare the change, planning the change, and then as you get to phase 4, you're looking at managing the implementation of the change before go live, and then post deployment, you're trying to reinforce and sustain the change. So it follows a typical sort of digital implementation, but can also be applied to other change initiatives. And it follows a typical waterfall project, but we are looking to develop agile into this as well. So within each of these phases, you'll see these grey boxes, which are the outputs for each phase. And I'll show you later that you can drill into these. And to achieve those outputs, there are some recommended activities, change activities. And to support you with those, we've got some tools and techniques. So that's how the toolkit works. We've got over 70 plus tools and techniques in this toolkit. And you'll see that number at the top, 46. So that's just to tell you that 46 of the tools that we use in this toolkit are used before the deployment phase. And this just highlights the importance of, embedding change early on in your change initiative. So putting in that groundwork in terms of preparation and planning is going to bear fruit in the future, especially using those change activities early on in terms of looking at your stakeholders, how they might be impacted. All those things are going to definitely help further on. You'll see at the bottom of this slide, we've also mapped NHS Digital's programme delivery lifecycle onto this framework. Now, in terms of how we've put the toolkit together, Julie mentioned some of the work that we did. So it's all built around that phased approach that I showed you on the previous screen. And what we did was we had that core team that came together, looked at the different phases, and then had a look at what was going to be included in each of those phases. So what are going to be the outputs, what are going to be the activities, and then we could start fitting in those tools and techniques around the different phases. So we have developed some of those ourselves, but then what we did was we opened it out to our wider team to help develop some of that content narrative and add in some more tools and techniques into our toolkit. And a lot of the models, the theory that you'll see in the toolkit is based around the Change Manager's Handbook. And that is a lot of our implementation managers, they've been on the change management course, our change management practitioners. So we've really used that handbook as a guide for a lot of the content in this toolkit. And you'll see on the screen here, it's a typical section of the toolkit with a key activity, tools and techniques that can support the activity, and useful tips and other references. with navigation at the top. But the best way to show you about how this works and give you an example is actually to go into the toolkit itself. So I'm just going to do that now. So just bear with me. Okay, so we're now in the actual toolkit itself. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an example and talk your way through it, show you how you navigate, and give you an example of a tool that we typically use within the toolkit. So as I navigate my way through the early sections of the toolkit, you're going to find an introductory section that's going to explain who this toolkit's for and how it should be used. So it's really designed as a resource for program, project, or business change managers. And there's many tools and techniques that can benefit you and help you with your change activities. There's some information on what change management is, so a bit of an introduction and theory around that concept. And then we've also tried to use a toolkit key. So all the navigation buttons, all the symbols that you see in the toolkit, the color coding is explained in this how to use section. Now we're here on what we call the main menu, and it's what I showed you on the slides, that framework, that phased approach. But now we're in the toolkit, it's interactive. So by me hovering my mouse button, you can see the little pointer hand means it's interactive. You can actually drill down now to any of these phases and any of these outputs. So what I'm going to do now is just demonstrate, as if I was undergoing a change initiative, and if I wanted to look into one particular area now, I could actually drill down. So I'm going to now actually, early in my change initiative, I'm going to go into the pre-discovery phase, phase 1. So here I'm looking to define the change, and the outcomes are I'm trying to engage early, build executive relationships, shape the program, and make an informed decision on change feasibility. So this is the main menu for this particular phase, and the key outputs here are the change vision and a compelling case for change. So those are the two key outputs, and those can be drilled down to, and within those outputs are key activities listed here, and those can also be drilled down to. So today we want to try and put together a compelling case for change. So I'm going to click on that key outputs, and this takes me into all the information about compelling case for change, and it gives you a bit of an introduction about what is a compelling case for change, what's the purpose. So here we're looking at trying to create that clear vision for success, tackle the what's in it for me questions, highlight the expected benefits and desired outcomes. So it just gives you a bit of information on what this section is. And you'll see again listed at the bottom are key activities to help you put together a compelling case for change. So these can be clicked on. So if I click on the first one, okay, so now we're into a key activity. So one of the key activities for a case for change is undertaking a situational analysis as is. So the text in the middle is that narrative, which explains what this key activity entails. So it's telling you that here you're trying to look at the current landscape. What's the current situation at the moment? What are the signs that change is necessary? What's the consequential risks of not changing? What we do now that's not creating value anymore. So you're looking at the situation now, and this is going to help you in terms of maybe using a high level gap analysis, and then you can start to look at, okay, what's the future state look like? So you're taking that information from maybe some change vision activities, and you're starting to map out, so what's the future look like, where we're trying to get to, and then you're looking at that gap between now and the future. You can then start to put together things like the implementation transition plan, which will show you a list of activities that are going to get you to that future state. So here we're almost trying to embed those change management principles early on by undertaking this activity. And this section explains how to do that. And to support you, there are tools and techniques to help you. So at the bottom here, you can see some of the tools that you can pick up and use. And shortly, I'm going to actually go into one of those tools to just demonstrate that. So here you can see there's a high-level gap analysis that you can click into and use that tool. Every key activity in this toolkit follows a similar format. So as well as the narrative and the tools at the bottom, we've got a useful tips section on the right-hand side. So just some more information on how to conduct this activity. You'll notice at the bottom, there are some more symbols. So at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see this book symbol. And this is a reference to the Change Manager's Handbook. So it's almost like a further reading. So if you want more information, you can go into the handbook and you can read up about how to do a gap analysis, SWOT analysis, etc. If you don't have the handbook, that's fine. What we've tried to do is source areas of the internet where we found some really useful information on how to do this activity. So we've got some, for example, YouTube videos on maybe how to do a gap analysis. So some really helpful information for you to pick up. Also at the top, there's the navigational buttons where you can actually go forward or back, or go back to the home screen. So I'm just going to click on to the next one. So if we go through this compelling case for change section, another activity is producing high-level benefits. So again, tells you about this activity, what to do, and then some tools and techniques you can pick up, like a benefits map, to help you with this activity. Okay, and we're into the key activity now of identifying drivers, risks, and potential resistance. And one of the key tools that we use often is a tool called the force field analysis. So what I'm now going to actually do is go into that tool and show you how a typical tool would work in this toolkit. Great. So now I've gone into the tool itself, and every tool follows this similar format. So what you'll see normally is an image of what the tool will look like when it's complete. So for example, here we've put a pre-completed force field analysis. And the way a force field analysis works is it's a tool that's used to look at potential resistance. And the way you'd use it is you'd think about the driving forces, and you'd identify forces that are supporting the change. So you do a bit of a brainstorm, list all those forces, and then rank them. Then you look at the resisting forces, again, bit of a brainstorm, identifying the forces that are hindering the change. And then again, you'd rank those. And what happens is it will give you an overall score. So if the score is a positive score, it means that the change has more chance of being successful. If it's negative, it means the resisting forces at the moment are stronger. So it's giving you that early indication that there are some issues here that you need to address. And what you would do is you'd use this tool, complete it, and then put together an action list to maybe augment those driving forces and reduce those resisting forces. As I move down the document, every tool will have a description of what the tool is. So just explain what force field analysis is, rationale for usage. So when would you actually use this tool? And the key thing is force field analysis helps you manage resistance to change, put together the action plan to improve successful outcomes. How to use the tool. So every tool's got a step-by-step, okay, follow these steps and this, you should be able to complete the tool. And what we found really useful for people wanting to pick up the tool is actually to have blank documents, tools that you could just pick up and use. So if I just press Control and click. And what this now does is you've got that blank tool now that you can pick up and use. So I've shown you the completed version. Here's a blank version now where you can actually start inputting into it. So you can easily pick it up and take it away. So I'm not going to put all the data in here now, but I'm just going to quickly just do a quick example. So your new change initiative might be a new HR system. So you enter the change initiative in the middle. You start brainstorming and thinking about, okay, what are the driving forces? What are those forces supporting the change? So maybe the current system is not fit for purpose. Give it a score. So maybe I'll give it 6. So I'd then obviously brainstorm, would have a lot more driving forces. Resisting forces, let's think of an example. So sometimes staff are under pressure and there's no time to train staff, for example, and you might give that a ranking 8, just for example. So once you start populating that, you'll see at the bottom it's giving you that overall score. It's a -2. It's showing you that at this moment in time the resisting forces are stronger than the driving forces. So that's how you use the tool. Easy to pick up and take away. So I'm just gonna try and come out here if I can find that. Okay, great. So yeah, as I move through the guidance document, what we've tried to do is give you different options as well on how to use the tool. So we've got the tool that I've just showed you, the Excel spreadsheet, which you can pick up. We've also got some guidance on running a workshop, so you can have face-to-face, get all your key stakeholders in a room, whiteboard it, get sticky notes up in there, and start brainstorming, going through doing this task face-to-face. We've also found that we've used the force-field analysis quite a lot in NHS Digital and working with organisations, and because it's used early on, it really highlights to all stakeholders some of the potential resistance. So what you see on screen now is a great way of turning that tool into like a presentation mode at maybe a board level, and it really highlights and stands out to people on that board meeting that, okay, there's a lot of restraining forces here. It sort of stands out and gives people an early indication of some of the issues that we can start to address. Okay, so I'm just going to come back out of that now. So yeah, I've just showed you there really what a typical tool looks like in this toolkit, and it pretty much follows the same theme throughout. So now I'm just going to go back, if I can just, okay, I'm trying to find the home button. Okay, so I just have to go back. Okay, I couldn't actually see the home button because the screen's hiding it. But when you click on that home button, there it takes you back to the actual main menu. And from this main menu, you can actually dip into any of these sections and again, pick up the tools. So if I wanted to look at phase 4, wanted to look at addressing skill gaps, you'd click on that. What's the key activities? Okay, I want to finalize skill gaps, develop a training plan. Click on that, tells you about the key activity, gives you a tool. You can pick up that training plan template and then follow that, pick up that tool and use it for your change management activity. Okay, so that is it in terms of the toolkit. Now I'm going to hand you back to Julie Atkins, who's going to take you through some of the next steps.
Thanks, James. Okay. While James is finding the slide, there are a couple of questions that are probably worth just dealing with now. So first of all, someone's asked if the book's available online for everyone. That book is the APMG Effective Change Management book, so it's part of their curriculum. It's available on Amazon if that helps. So next steps for us. Can you move on, please, James? So as we mentioned, both internal and external feedback's been really positive. And our aspiration is to help local organisations to better adopt and sustain the use of digital data and technology products and services, particularly from NHS Digital, but from a wider perspective as well. And so we've got support from our NHS Digital senior leadership to work towards an accessible web-based toolkit, because that really is the only way. We're currently hosting this on Teams, as you can see. It's in PowerPoint. It works for us internally, but to move forward, that's not going to work for us. So we're working towards an accessible web-based version. But in the meantime, we'd still like to continue to trial with a small number of change managers to create some user stories. We don't have enough real life examples of where these tools have worked. We're very restricted to where we've got involved in things in NHS Digital. So we're particularly keen to look for different types of case studies, fast-paced, big bang, large projects, small projects. We're working with one organisation that's literally carrying out a small change in a GP practice, and we want to see which tools, techniques can work for them and create a user story on the basis of that. And of course, we want to continue to work with HEE to develop the toolkit and establish a wider community of practice. And we're hoping that will be the community that we're currently working with. Next slide, please, James. So we'd like to ask you some questions, if we may, in terms of a poll. So you should be able to see very soon when that poll goes live. 3 questions. The first one, do you think that you would benefit from access to a change management toolkit? Not necessarily ours, but do you think you would benefit from access to a change management toolkit? And we're getting some responses now. They're all positive at the moment, yes. So there's a fair amount of interest there. Some people wouldn't benefit from that. That's absolutely fine. Okay, thank you. Can we ask the next question, please? So the next question is, would you like to get involved with the initial development of such a tool? Assuming that you benefit from it, would you like to get involved with the initial development? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you've got time to get involved. Would you like to get involved with is the question, but we accept that's not necessarily something that's going to be available to everyone. Again, thank you. Most responses are positive, so that's great. Thank you. And our last poll question, please, is if such a thing existed, who would you see managing changes and evolution of a tool once it's established? So should that be Health Education England? Should that be an alternative ALB such as NHS Digital or NHS England? Should it be a locally hosted health and care organisation, or is there another alternative, in which case we'd appreciate your thoughts, please, and perhaps in the chat. So at the moment, Health Education England or an alternative ALB is running through, but we have got some others in there. So please, if you've opted for other, can you give us some ideas about what that might be in the chat? That would be really helpful. Thank you. I think that's the last of our polls. So we'll move to questions, if that's okay.
Okay, back to the questions then. So first question, Julie, how do you access the toolkit? How can people get access to the toolkit? And,
Okay.
and supplementary question, which I'll ask at the same time because you can pick this up, is can you access the toolkit if you're not from the NHS? If so, how?
Okay, so there are two slightly different questions. So how do you access the toolkit at the moment? It's our internal toolkit. So as we said, we've got an aspiration to create a web-based version of it, and we're working on that, and that will give everyone access, which then answers the question about if you're not in the NHS, because it's hopefully going to be hosted on a site that will be available to non-NHS organisations as well. But I'm afraid at the moment, unless, as I said, we want to trial with organisations that are prepared to get involved and provide us with a user story. So unless you've got a great change project that you think you're desperate to use something like this, and it would help us to provide real life examples, that would be brilliant. But other than that, I'm afraid we're not in a position yet to open it up to everyone. Sorry.
And a supplementary question is, when do you expect the web-based version to be rolled out? Do you have any timescales?
We don't. We're very, very early in our thinking on that, I'm afraid. So we don't have timescales, but a lot of it depends on the demand. So supply and demand. If we have sufficient demand to go back to our senior leaders to get the resources we need to do that, then we're back to, have we got a business case to do this? We're not trying to thrust it on anyone at all. It's useful for what we use it for now. It's useful to us. But if there's a case to make it quicker, then we put that case to our leadership.
Thanks, Julie. Questions come in. If the change programme is already partway through, is there still value in completing some of the activities that are meant to be done in the initiation phases?
Yes, in my opinion, but you do them differently. So our toolkit is designed to do them at the phase, at the right stage. But there's no point in brainstorming a vision for something that you already know has got clear outcomes and you're already partway through. But making that vision real is important, even if it's late in the game, because if you've forgotten to do it in the first place, then it's definitely going to be worth doing later on.
Brilliant, thank you. Another question, where does the toolkit sit in terms of the QSIR methodology? That's the quality service and redesign methodology produced by NHS Improvement.
It doesn't. We've not looked at that at all. As I said, this is currently an internal tool, so it's probably something that we'll be looking at as part of our wider the potential for wider publication of the tool. But at the moment, we've not considered anything outside of our own selfish requirements, I'm afraid.
Thanks, Julie. And someone's put, how do we request trialing the toolkit in our organisation? I can't say who it is because the questions are anonymous, but how do people go about requesting that? I
think our contact details are available on our system. If not, then I'll put my email address on the chat here. Basically, just contact us, but please don't. Rather than wasting your time, please don't contact us to say we'd like access to it. Please tell us what you're doing and how you think this might be able to help, and we will work with you, because that's a win-win for both us and you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Julie. We've come to the end of the questions. I would just like to say thank you very much for a really thrilling presentation this afternoon from all of your team. I personally have been through the Change Management Toolkit, and what you covered this afternoon literally only scratches the surface. There is a wealth of information in that toolkit that is really useful in any change initiative that you are undertaking, really in any organisation. It doesn't just have to be NHS. But so once again, thank you very much for your presentation this afternoon.
Thank you. We can't wait to be able to share it.